Sally Buck and the team for Linwood-Central-Heathcote.
I apologise for my comment. I was meant to say Ponsonby.
He's coming. He shot out. He shot out.
It was a joke about a TV show. I retract. I'll stop watching TV.
Oh.
We've got them all.
Oh, it's like herding cats, isn't it?
Are you right? Are we
Yep,
on? Okay.
pretty far away.
Okay, thanks. We, the Waikura Community Board, would like to thank the Council for allowing us to speak to our submission. With me today, I've got Tim Lindley, Daryl Latham and Jake McLellan here. We've got the whole board here except for one person. And they will speak on parts of our submission as well. I would just firstly like to speak on the proposed capital program item, the Linwood-Woolston Pool. Our board covers a huge area. It covers the suburbs of Addington, Avonside, Bromley, Phillipstown, Central City, Sydenham, Woolston, Waltham, Linwood, Heathcote, Ferrymead, Mount Pleasant, Redcliffe, Sumner and parts of St Albans. Now, we as a board are a very diverse group of people from across these various suburbs. However, we are totally united about the need for an aquatic community facility in the Linwood-Woolston area to serve all these suburbs, especially the lower socioeconomic suburbs in our area. We're united about the need for this, we're united about where it should go, and we're united about the type of facility that is proposed. And our communities in these areas are united and right behind us on this issue. We do not support any reduction in funding or extending the timeline for this community facility. And our board really appreciates the Council's resolution to delegate the decision of the location, scope and final concept design to the board. I just want to say, in our submission, we've included some projects that could be deferred or cancelled to help with your budgeting process. We also support alternate ways of the Council raising money. Now I'm going to pass to Jake to talk about some of the things he wants to talk about.
Sure. I'm just going to briefly touch on inner city priorities. So the regeneration of the Linwood Village is something this board is determined to see real progress happen in the current term. The community-led revitalisation plan is well underway and will be completed by December 2018. We're getting lots of feedback and are being kept well abreast of learnings. So early community feedback indicates that more community facilities and green spaces are a priority, and the board requests funding to implement the plan's all-important priority projects. In that same vein, we're calling for a greening of the inner city east. That's a high priority for the ward area I represent. The board requests funding for this to enhance the aesthetic and the health outcomes of the neighbourhood and contribute to Christchurch's image as a garden city. This needs to be a part of the city residents are even more proud to belong to. Money has been assigned, but now we're keen to see some project progress. The board would also like to commend Council's Housing First initiative. However, we continue to advocate for more and higher quality social housing. Daryl, I think.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Three issues that I'd like to address. The first is drinking water, stormwater and flood protection infrastructure. Drinking water, stormwater and flood protection are significant priorities for the city, and the board fully supports the council initiatives in these areas. The board also notes the planning around coastal hazards and signals the need for funding in the widest sense to implement priority actions in the future. Secondly, the master plans inclusive of the Ferry Road Master Plan, Woolston Village upgrade, and Heathcote and Oak Street streetscapes enhancements and the suburban master plan programs overall, Council will be aware that there are 9 master plans within the Linwood-Central-Heathcote board area. We have 5 of those master plans, so it is a significant issue for us. So the board supports the completion of all suburban master plans in the board area, inclusive of Buchan Park remodel. The suburban master planning process has helped achieve a restoration of a vision for suburban Christchurch. It has been a process of rebuilding people's confidence, expectation and optimism in their communities and the wider city. So therefore we support the Council's initiatives in the master planning areas. Finally, the skate facility, Sumner to Ferrymead and the Village Green. This is a priority project of significance in the Bays area. For our board. A skate facility for youth will have multiple benefits. It has been a project that has seen significant community engagement over an extended period of time, and the time is now right to bring this process to fruition. Therefore, the board supports this project as it has been a long-standing community project. Thank you. Tim.
Right, I'm going to talk on 4 of our priorities. The first one's major cycleways. Now, the cycleways projects overall in the city have reached an interesting stage where enough has been done to get numbers on how many people will be using them. And the figures that are coming through show that the cycleways are popular and will be used even more than anticipated. So we strongly encourage completion of the cycleways in our area, the Heathcote Expressway and the Rapanui cycleway, without any further delays. So we support strongly the funding of those cycleways. We also note that the Rapanui cycleway will connect the centre of the city through to the beginning of the Christchurch Coastal Pathway at Ferrymead. And that leads me on to the second one, which is the coastal pathway itself. The work's currently underway on the pathway that will be carried out in the next year or so. Will bring the pathway to the position where 90% of the length of the route will be in place. The bit that's missing is that will be the chunk around the difficult section around Marks Bay. And as a board we request that the project is taken to full completion. It has so many benefits in terms of health, protecting against climate change outcomes, providing safe transit between suburbs. The connection between Redcliffs and Sumner is a very difficult section and is a dangerous one for pedestrians and cyclists. So we strongly urge that is completed. I want to mention at the beginning of the coastal pathway there's that lovely little building called Cobb Cottage, which is much loved but is sitting under plastic and quietly, who knows what's happening to it under there. We strongly support repair of Cobb Cottage as soon as possible. It's one that's much loved in the community. There's strong support for it to be brought out from wraps and into a place where people can enjoy it. And finally, I want to talk about the flood protection works, particularly along the Heathcote and Apawaho River. The residents along there that are on our boards and other boards have been very patient while the council does the detailed work of mapping out exactly how things have changed and exactly what the impact of various remedying activities will have. It is now time for those to be implemented and implemented as quickly as possible. So we strongly support the flood protection work along the Heathcote. We also note that it gives a great deal of opportunities for community enhancement, walkways, cycleways, etc., in a relatively inexpensive way along a beautiful part of it. So we encourage community consultation with enhancement work as that happens. So there's a strong desire for that to happen for a safety perspective, but it would also add so much to the community. And that's my list.
Thank you. I just had one more thing to say. Last year we advocated for a drop-in centre, a citywide project for a drop-in centre for street communities, and we were left after the annual plan with the idea that council was going to work with us on this and have it somewhere near Central City, and we put forward a site for it, a council piece of land for it, but we're still waiting to find out where this is going and how we can help progress this idea further. We have left plenty of time for questions.
Right, good. Well, I've got Jamie, Glenn, Phil, Mike.
Great, thank you. You speak of the inner city east revitalisation, particularly around the Linwood Village area, but I wondered if your board had a view on Central City residential, specifically within the 4 Avs. And I guess to put that differently, I note the dog park request, but does the board wish to see more residents living centrally? And is there a role for the council to do more or help incentivise expediting that?
Jake, do you want to say anything, or do you want me to say something?
Well, the board doesn't have a...
We haven't taken a board position on it. I do think that what you have in place, which the government I know put in place in terms of what you've got to do in Central City, I think it limits what people can do in there and is causing a lot of problems now, as we have an issue coming up on our board later today about how places are being able to be built without any parking, and so therefore other streets are having to take the brunt of that, and they're wanting walkways through parks so that they can get to their place through the back, and then the other streets have all the parking for that. If you look at our board agenda, you'll see that on today. We have that issue. So I think, if anything, the council could have a look at what the government did with Central City and maybe have a rethink about how it's actually working out, in actual fact.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's the district plan issue, but I was just quite surprised that you hadn't taken a position on the numbers of people.
Only like one sort of people to live in there.
Sorry?
It allows only a sort of like, it doesn't allow anybody to, it's not said, well, actually, here's a space of land we could have tiny houses in. Here's some land where people could build some bigger houses or something, rather than having to have a unit every 200 square metres. So it doesn't allow for any variety in there.
Yeah, well, that is an interpretation of it, but I hope you've got someone from the resource consenting area or the district plan people coming to talk to your community, because I mean there's not a requirement, it's not a restriction. You can't not have parking. You're not obliged not to have parking, but it's not a requirement to have parking. But anyway, that's.
But then if you've got 400 square metres in the Central City area, and you try and put one house on that, it's very difficult to get that through council.
Yeah.
They want you to put more.
There is a requirement to build more densely than you would in the neighbourhoods. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, even if you've only had one house on there, it's very difficult to put one back.
Yeah.
If I could add to what Sally is saying and say that this is not necessarily a board perspective, it's a personal perspective, but I do have a concern over the way the development is taking place within the Central City, particularly with the parking issues and the accessibility issues, and I think that is something that council needs to reflect on, because the feedback that I'm getting even within our board is that is an area of concern.
Yeah, the district plan is the district plan though, so
yes,
I mean
yes, I understand
the LTP process is not something that we can utilise, but the desire to have more people living in the CBD was a lot sooner than the earthquakes ever occurred. It's been in the urban development strategy for a very long time, and I'm just surprised that the community board doesn't have a view on it.
20,000 by 2024.
No, 2041 was the urban development strategy, and all the there's been no change to the urban development strategy that brings that forward at this stage, but that is what we're working on. Glenn, Phil.
Thank you. Page 92, you say request additional funding for new social housing units. Can you please tell us what precisely would be that funding source? And it's in the context of... well, is it in the context of talking about council housing?
Yes, and I can't remember how that one got on. It wasn't one of our major priorities, and sometimes the LTP submissions coming into our board, things like that.
Okay, so, well it's written and it's also on the PowerPoint presentation.
We did, and I mean, I think social housing is great, and the more we can have of it, the better. But
it's just a bit of a general statement. It's not up to us to decide how your capitalisation of your housing trust happens or anything like that. What we are saying is we support social housing, we support more of it. You're
requesting additional funding, it's in your submission, but you're not saying where it's from. Okay.
I've just said that's not our...
We have given you some projects where we would say you could defer these or cancel some of them even if you wish to save some money.
Okay.
No on our submission.
Phil?
Thank you. You've commended the Housing First program and also referred to developing our social housing and increasing that. So I just want to ask you about where the drop-in centre concept might fit in with that, especially, for example, Housing First for people who are homeless, how that might be aligned and fit together, perhaps. And I also wonder if you've talked to the City Mission, perhaps, about the drop-in centre.
I don't think it aligns as such, and we hadn't tried to align it together. And like I said here, that we brought this idea of drop-in centre to you because we felt it was really needed in the annual plan, and we were told it will go to committees, which I think you were one of your committees, it might have been you, Phil, your committee, and I can't remember who else's committee, and that the council would work with us as a board. However, we have not heard anything back from anybody about this, and that's why I'm raising it here.
I think we could talk further, and also with the City Mission as well, Sally.
It would be good, because I thought you were going to be leading that thing, and because it was a citywide project rather than just a board project, and the homeless don't just live in our area, they live in all areas of Christchurch, but where they congregate is often in our area.
Mike?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to acknowledge, obviously, the board's support for, obviously, the Linwood Pool, which is a much-needed aquatic facility in your area, and also your ongoing support of community facilities. And the fact that you mentioned St Albans is a part of the community board area. It's actually a significant part as well. There is a lot of residents in there. And it's only 100 metres away from the St Albans Community Centre that's going to be rebuilt, and also around 300 metres away from the St Albans pool, community pool, that the community are actually saying, we want this back. So as a community board, would you support these community projects getting the additional funding required?
You mean
St Albans Pool, Edgware Pool, and the St Albans Community Centre, which pretty much is right on the boundary of Central and actually affects a lot of the residents that you advocate for. Would you support funding for those two projects?
We haven't made any decision on that as a board, so I don't like to speak as for the board. And I'm wondering if you've asked every board this question.
No, I'm asking this board.
He's asking the boundary question.
The boundary, because
it was bound to be asked.
Yeah, St Albans Community Centre is 100 metres from the Central Ward, so a lot of the users of that centre are going to be from Central, and also the same with Edgware Pool. It's 300 metres from the boundary, so a lot of the users of the pool are going to be actually from Central. And we've heard very clearly from the community about how important these two projects are. So you may not have a board view, but does anyone have a personal view on whether...
No, that's not fair. They're here as a board, And I think that you've cleverly raised the issue, and I'm sure that they will take it back to their community board for further consideration before they come.
I think the issue
back.
here is not raising the question and putting it in front of us cold, but give us the information and let us make a decision rather than putting us on the spot to answer something that we don't have all the facts on.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely the right answer, and it does give us an opportunity to think around those, you know, because I mean some of the wards we've already heard, you know, that things transferred from one ward to another, and then change community boards, and so people who've very familiar with a particular subject suddenly are faced with it being dealt with in another ward. So anyway, that gives us an opportunity to...
Yeah, I think I could say on behalf of the board, though, that we would in no way back down from our very strong support for the Linwood Aquatic Centre in the way that is envisaged by the board. Yeah.
Exactly, and making decisions at this
anyway,
council level is an informed process.
And the advantage of raising the Edgware one is the incredible cost saving that it would represent if it were modelled on the other side of the ward. So, just saying. Thank you very, very much for coming forward today and for putting so much effort into your presentation. It's very much appreciated. Thank you.